Alright, so this is my video presentation on the questions that were based for this class for this week. Let's start off with number 1. Where did my camera go? There it is. Why is it doing that? Sorry. The difference between a trade deficit and a trade surplus. A trade deficit occurs when a country imports more goods than it exports. This eventually leads to a higher net flow out of the country to foreign markets. Another good example is set right here. Perfect example is the US importing electronics and other goods from China. We do tend to do that a lot, and we don't make as much here anymore as we used to. So now we have this becomes a trade deficit, exporting more goods, exporting much lesser goods back there. So we're gaining stuff here, but we're not sending anything back. So they're not spending any money, they're making all of the money there, which is good for them but terrible for us. The US is therefore running a trade deficit with China. And again, we have run into a trade surplus. A trade surplus occurs when a country exports more goods than it imports. It results in a huge inflow of foreign currency. So, a perfect example is when Germany creates all of its cars, all the German cars that are expensive, Mercedes, BMW, they all make there, and then they are sent here. So they sell them for a much higher value to us, and then we obviously have to pay it. So once the value that they send out exceeds the amount that they bring in, it becomes a trade surplus. So they're making all of the money there, and not having to spend anything. The summary for this question was that the United States happens to operate at a trade deficit. The United States imports a significant amount of consumer goods, electronics, and oil. This has led to a higher level of imports compared to exports. This has been overall influenced by high consumer demand rather than manufactured goods. So pretty much what it explains is that we, again, get shirts, pants, all of our stuff comes from other countries, and it's not made here. So we're not gaining anything here. We're gaining it. We're losing a lot of money there. So on to the next one. Pre-1930s conventional wisdom versus Keynesian economies. Pre-1930s conventional wisdom. The classical economic theory dominated. This summed up the idea that markets are self-regulating. Economies naturally trend toward full employment due to flexible prices and wages. The economists believed that this was unnecessary because the economy would correct itself. Keynesian economics. This was introduced by John Maynard Keynes in response to the Great Depression. They argued that economies could run in prolonged periods of high unemployment and low production. Keynes propose that during economic downturns, demand is insufficient to maintain full employment, sorry. Only government spending can restore demand, reduce unemployment, and even stimulate economic growth. The difference between the two. The main difference is that Keynesian economies advocates for active government intervention, especially during recessions. Keynes believed that fiscal policies like government spending and tax cuts could boost demand and lead to economic recovery. Uh, we've seen that before in the last couple of years when everybody was trying to get back to work and trying to restore the market. Whereas economists believe that the economy would self-adjust over time, which doesn't really work because then it gets all messed up. Okay. Now we're up to the last question. The difference between monetary and fiscal policy. Monetary policy is the process by which a central bank controls the money supply and interest rates to influence economic growth, inflation, and unemployment. Tools of monetary policy include open market operations, which is buying and selling government securities, and adjusting the discount rate and changing reserve requirements. So a perfect example right here. For example, in a recession, the central bank may lower interest rates to encourage borrowing and investment. When the country needs money and banks need money, they need to lower the interest rates so that people would be willing to put their money in savings accounts instead of spending. So they conserve spending, and then that's how it happens. On to the next one. Fiscal policy. Fiscal policy involves government decisions on taxation and spending to influence the economy. Fiscal policy can take the form of increased government spending, such as infrastructure projects, or tax cuts to stimulate demand. Conversely, during times of high inflation, the government may reduce spending or raise taxes to cool down the economy. On to the next one. The business cycle. The business cycle refers to the natural fluctuations in economic activity over time marked by periods of expansion and contraction. The peak is the highest point of economic activity before a downturn, and the trough is the lowest point of economic activity before recovery. The recession versus expansions. The recession is a period of economic decline marked by falling GDP, higher unemployment, and reduced spending and investment. The expansion is a period of economic growth with rising GDP, lower unemployment, and increased production and consumption. By using monetary and fiscal policies, governments and central banks aim to smooth out the business cycle, mitigating the extremes of booms and busts to stabilize and grow the economy. So that pretty much sums up all the questions that were asked of me for this presentation. So I hope you liked it. Thank you.